Welcome to the Deep Dive. For this session, we're really focusing on something super important for you, especially if you're jumping into the world of arts, audio, video tech, and communications in your Principles of Arts, AV Tech, and Communications course.
Right.
Think of this as your kind of shortcut to getting the ethical and legal rules of the road. We've waded through a ton of info for you. Everything from crash course videos on IP, digital info, government, the First Amendment.
Copyright basics.
Yeah, copyright basics. A Duke University video on the First Amendment, some insights on ethics from the Ethics Center, the lowdown on the SEC from the broadcast engineer.
And that DOJ video on FOIA.
Exactly. Plus key bits from books like Ethics at Work, Evaluating Information, Examining Copyright Laws, and Exploring Laws Regarding Technology. Our mission, basically, to give you a clear, maybe even entertaining handle on things like keeping client stuff private, giving credit where it's due, and understanding the big laws that affect you without, drowning you in jargon.
Exactly. We want to pull out the essentials from all these places so you really get why these ethics and legal things are so critical in the creative fields you're looking at.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. Ethical decisions. At its core, ethics is, it's about what you believe is right and wrong, isn't it?
Pretty much.
And when you take that into a job, those beliefs become your work ethic, how you should act at work. A lot of it's basic stuff, really.
Yeah.
Treating people right, following the law.
Yeah, and it's interesting how these sort of abstract ideas show up in really concrete ways at work, like taking credit for someone else's idea. Clearly unethical.
Right.
Or, like Ethics at Work points out, even grabbing office supplies to take home. That's not just, frowned upon, it's actually theft.
Totally. And for many of you heading into arts, AV, communications, confidentiality is huge. Non-negotiable, really.
Yeah.
Whether it's client info, company secrets, internal memos, keeping that stuff private, not sharing it with anyone who shouldn't see it, is just basic professional ethics. Ethics at work really drives that home.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, like ethical employees are the bedrock of a trustworthy workplace. They get the rules, they follow the processes.
Yeah.
That employee handbook, it's not just paper. It often spells out the ethical expectations, how to ask for time off, how to handle company stuff properly.
And it's not just about people and rules. Ethics ties directly into respecting intellectual property, copyrights, patents. We'll dig way deeper into copyright soon. But just knowing that respecting creative work is an ethical thing,
Yeah.
that's fundamental in these fields.
Right. And this isn't just on individuals. Companies have ethical responsibilities too. Think about a company ignoring safety rules or hiding info from customers to make a buck.
Yeah, clear ethical fails.
Definitely. As the Ethics Center video explains, ethics helps us figure out what the good choices are, what options are even viable for individuals and organizations.
This is where it gets kind of tricky, though. Your choices, your actions,
Yeah.
they're shaped by your personal values,
Yeah.
societal principles, company policies, industry norms.
The whole mix of things.
Yeah. But what if your values clash with a company rule? The Ethics Center touches on this complexity. And that's where having, an ethical framework, a way to think through these messes, is so valuable.
Exactly. It's rarely just black and white. Understanding the ethics involved helps you make better, more responsible choices in those gray areas you will encounter.
Okay, let's get practical again. Client confidentiality. We mentioned it, but ethics at work really stresses your duty here. In comms, media production, even commissioned art. The trust you build by keeping info private. It's everything.
And it's not just about dodging legal trouble, right? It's about building that trust. Reputation is huge in the professional world. Being known as someone who respects sensitive info, that's gold for your career. Trust and respect, basically.
Right. Okay, now let's shift to giving credit, which brings us straight to copyright and plagiarism. Crash Course explains copyright law as basically the right to copy. It's one of those exclusive rights given to creators of original stuff. You make something original, copyright gives you control over how it's used.
Yeah, and that Crash Course video clarifies it protects original expressions fixed in a tangible form. So a script you write down, an MP3 you record, code you write, anything you save or record somehow.
Right.
But the key is it protects the expression, not the idea itself.
That's such an important point. They use that Matthias Buchinger biography example. The facts of his life, birth date, what he did now little about him. Anyone can research and write about him. But the way an author tells his story, the narrative they build, That is protected. You can't just copy their book.
And it's also key to know, as Crash Course points out, just because you buy a copy like a vinyl record or textbook, you don't own the copyright. You own the object, sure.
Well, right, the physical thing.
But the creator or copyright holder keeps the rights to copy it, distribute it, make new versions, all that.
And you might be surprised. The bar for creativity for copyright, it's pretty low. Crash Course says even a scintilla, a tiny spark, a dab of creativity can do it. Doesn't have to be a masterpiece.
Which makes sense, given how much stuff gets created. The Copyright Act lists categories: literary works, music, sound recordings, plays, choreography, photos, sculptures, movies, architecture.
Yeah, all that.
And like Crash Course says, that list isn't even final. People keep finding new ways to be creative.
Okay, here's a term you'll probably hear. Works made for hire. Crash Course explains this well. If you create something as part of your job.
Your employer usually owns the copyright.
Exactly. The employer is considered the author. Think about those Crash Course videos, the scripts, the graphics, the editing, that likely belongs to the company that paid for it.
That's a really key thing for anyone planning to be an employee in a creative job. Unless your contract says something different, the work you do on the clock probably belongs to the company. They're paying for your skills, but they typically own the economic rights to what you create.
So once something is copyrighted, the owner gets this bundle of exclusive rights. The right to make copies, adapt it like a movie from a book, distribute copies, perform it publicly, like playing a song live.
Display it publicly, like art in a gallery, and for sound recordings, transmit it digitally, like streaming. Crash Course breaks all these down.
Yeah.
What's interesting is copyright protection happens automatically. As soon as you create the work in a tangible form, it's protected. You don't have to register it.
Oh, great.
But as Crash Course mentions, registering with the U.S. Copyright Office gives you big advantages, especially if you ever need to sue someone for infringement in federal court.
And infringement. And what is that exactly? Simply put, it's copying protected work without permission.
Right.
Examining copyright laws is super clear. This is serious business. Can lead to big fines, even jail time sometimes.
Which leads right back to why giving credit is so crucial. If you're quoting someone, using their image, even referencing their idea, you have to cite your source.
Absolutely.
Examining copyright laws stresses that. Citing gives credit, and it lets others find the original source too.
And if you don't give credit, that's plagiarism. Examining copyright laws calls it using someone else's ideas or work as your own, basically stealing.
Yeah.
And the consequences. Bad grades in school, sure. But professionally, it can wreck your reputation, even lead to legal trouble.
It's so vital for students to get how to avoid it, like examining copyright laws lays out. Cite when you quote, cite when you summarize or paraphrase, cite when you use their idea or refer to their work, footnotes, endnotes, bibliography, use them.
Now, there are some important exceptions. A big one for students is the fair use doctrine.
Right.
Examining copyright laws explains this lets you use a limited amount of copyrighted material without permission for certain things. Criticism, commentary, news, teaching, research. So, like quoting a short bit from a movie in a school presentation, probably okay under fair use.
But limited is the key word there, isn't it? Fair use is usually for brief bits, especially for non-commercial educational stuff. Use too much or use it to make money, and you probably need permission. It's often judged case by case.
Yeah, definitely. Another way stuff gets shared is through Creative Commons licenses.
Yeah.
Examining copyright laws mentions these. Creators can choose these licenses to let others share, use, maybe even change their work, but often with specific rules attached, like you can use this if you do X, Y, and Z.
And while we're talking IP, worth a quick mention of trademarks and patents, which that source also covers. Trademarks are like logos or brand names, legally protected symbols.
Like the Nike swoosh.
Exactly. And patents protect inventions, give you the exclusive right to make, use, or sell it, using someone else's trademark or patent without permission. That's infringement. Big legal no-no.
All right, let's switch gears. Other laws you need on your radar. Big one. The First Amendment.
Freedom of speech and press.
Right. Both the Duke Video and Exploring laws explain it guarantees these freedoms. And as tech evolved, it's been interpreted to cover broadcasting, the internet.
What's interesting, though, as the Duke Video notes, is that protection isn't absolute. The government can't punish you for your views, mostly, but some types of speech aren't protected at all.
Exactly. Like defamation, lying to hurt someone's reputation. Or true threats, inciting immediate violence, fighting words, obscenity, child pornography, false advertising.
Right.
But deciding if something falls into those categories, The Duke video stresses it can be really complex, depends heavily on the context.
And a super crucial point both sources make. The First Amendment protects you from the government.
Yeah, not from private actors.
Right. So the government can't arrest you for criticizing your boss, but your boss can still fire you, as the Duke video says.
Okay.
And social media platforms, private companies, they can mostly make and enforce their own content rules.
And freedom of the press, also First Amendment. Lets journalists report on public interest stuff, hold power accountable. But again, limits, like defamation.
Now, the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, the Broadcast Engineer Video and Exploring laws say they regulate radio, TV, telephone, and now aspects of the internet and smartphones, too.
One of their main jobs, according to the broadcast engineer, is giving licenses to radio and TV stations. They also enforce decency standards. Sort of.
Yeah, it's tricky. The FCC actually can't censor stuff before it airs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but they can fine stations afterwards if they broadcast obscene or indecent language.
Gotcha. Exploring laws also brings up net neutrality. Big debate topic. The idea is basically that internet providers shouldn't block, slow down, or charge extra for specific legal content online. Keep it a level playing field.
Another important law, FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act.
Right. The Justice Department video explains this gives the public the right to request records from federal agencies.
Transparency, basically.
Yeah, let citizens see what the government's up to.
Yeah.
Agencies have to release info unless it falls into specific exceptions. Privacy, national security, law enforcement stuff.
And finally, let's touch on liability law. Exploring laws defines it as being legally responsible.
Go.
These laws figure out who's at fault when something goes wrong, injury, bad product, or even harmful information being distributed.
It's interesting. Someone who publishes lies on a website might be liable. But the ISP just hosting user comments? Maybe not. Gets complicated.
Right. That source also mentions self-regulation, like movie and game ratings, industries trying to handle concerns without the government stepping in.
Yeah.
And just for context, that Crash Course government video gives a good overview of the legal system itself. Courts settling disputes, interpreting laws, setting precedents.
Statutes versus common law.
Exactly. Statutes are written laws from legislatures. Common law comes from court decisions over time. Help see where all these specific laws and ethics fit in the bigger picture.
So, okay, wrapping this up. We covered a lot. Key takeaways for you, especially in your Principles of Arts, AV Tech, and Communications course. Get a grip on ethical decision-making. Always respect client confidentiality.
Always.
Give proper credit, understand copyright, and avoid plagiarism. And know the legal landscape. Copyright, First Amendment, protections and limits, FCC rules, FOIA.
And absolutely essential, like evaluating information stresses. Develop critical thinking, question sources, check biases, verify accuracy and validity, how relevant is it, don't just accept stuff, find reliable evidence from credible sources.
Right. And on that note, here's a final thought to chew on. With tech changing so fast, media evolving constantly, how do these ethical principles and laws need to adapt?
Good question.
What new challenges do you see coming in maintaining ethical standards and navigating legal lines in your creative field? Think about specifics. AI creating content, changing rules on online privacy.
Yeah, data usage.
It's a constantly shifting landscape. Your ability to stay informed, think critically, and act ethically. More important than ever.